place to bury their dead.
Welcome to Paranormal Things. I'm your host, Keith from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Welcome to the most haunted graveyard on Earth, Greenwood Cemetery.
In places that the Native Americans had also used.
Here it is.
Site which would eventually become Greenwood Cemetery. And while the
Greenwood
settlers
Cemetery.
and Native Americans shared the area for
Native
a brief
Americans
time,
and
the
Europeans
settlers ultimately
share
drove
the same graveyard. That's the birth of the
with
graveyard.
An act of cold-blooded violence. Dubbed by historian Roy V. Ternius as the Moonshiners and the Indians, the incident is thought to have occurred in the late 1820s, possibly 1828, according to records. Regardless of the exact year, in the spring of the year in question, a small group of moonshiners chased some Native American people who were passing by their still. The reason for the pursuit and subsequent attack is unknown, but we do know that the Native Americans were chased through the woods and forced up a hill in the direction of the burial grounds.
Early years
Once
of Greenwood Cemetery.
The moonshiners gunned them down and concealed their bodies in a shallow ravine on the side of the hill, which they covered with stones. The resulting crude grave can still be seen on the southwestern part of the cemetery. Wonder why everyone thinks that place is haunted.
Famous residents. Who's famous there?
Settlers continued to use the area as a corpse garden, and by 1857 it was incorporated as Greenwood Cemetery. After it fell into extreme disrepair in the 1920s following the Great Depression, eerie ghost stories began to circulate about its restless residents.
1852.
But the spooky tales weren't enough to dissuade some people. By the 1950s, Greenwood had become something of a secret hideout.
They really manicured.
There were reports of gangs using the cemetery as a meetup spot at night to avoid the police. There were even rumors of cults using the grounds for various black magic rituals, which was probably nonsense, but hey, I'm not going out there to prove them wrong. But any of these stories of the living playing
again, please subscribe to my show.
Compared to the vast collection of undead apparitions said to have made Greenwood their eternal home. One of these legends of otherworldly encounters is the Weeping Woman of the Barackman Steppes, one of Greenwood's most frequently spotted residents. Greenwood Cemetery is a rolling mix of hills and valleys, and on one of these hills are 5 stone steps which lead up to the 4 gravestones of the Barackman family.
Grand Valley Cemetery.
Throughout the years, there have been numerous reports of a woman standing at the top of the steps with her head bowed, crying like she just got a look at her monthly cable bill. This broken-hearted specter only appears in the evening and is said to vanish with the sunset. But while this weeping woman has made a good amount of appearances, her legend pales in comparison to Greenwood's most famous and tragic spirit. In 1930, a young couple was engaged to be married, but the young groom-to-be was a bit too wild for the family of his future bride. It seems that during these waning years of prohibition, this young man made his money selling illegal whiskey, which, while not being a terribly uncommon profession at the time, could still be very dangerous, and probably wasn't great son-in-law material. You don't want your daughter to marry a man who might suddenly get shot, arrested, or blown up while bringing home the bacon. One
but they had speakeasies and things like that.
And finally run away together to elope. The plan was for the two to leave just after midnight, after the young man delivered a final shipment of whiskey to supply them with the money they needed for their secret wedding trip. He never showed up, but he hadn't gotten cold feet. He'd been gunned down by a rival bootlegger while delivering his whiskey, and the culprit had dumped his body into the Sangamon River. Well, I guess so technically he did get cold feet. After waiting for him all night, the young would-be bride learned of her fiancé's fate when his body was discovered by local fishermen. He was buried at Greenwood Cemetery, which you probably saw coming. But what you may not have seen coming is that the young woman, unable to face life without her beloved, plunged into the river and drowned. Hey, look, it's a ghost story. It's gonna be sad. Nobody turns into a poltergeist after living an awesome life and passing away peacefully in a gigantic bed. The woman's parents decided to bury her in her wedding gown. Soon after, stories began circulating about a young woman in a white wedding dress walking through the cemetery, weeping and looking through the headstones.
Any pictures?
Presumably searching for her lost love.
Just a lot of old tombstones.
By now. Maybe they're moving the headstones to prank the ghosts. That's a reality show. Ghost Prankers. Hey there, weird historians. Today's episode is sponsored by Wondrium. If you want to learn even more surprising facts about our world, Wondrium. You subscribe to the...
Well, there you have it. Subscribe to the Weird History channel and Paranormal Things. Till we meet again, sleep tight.